You know for a fact, Mei, Yui, and Yuji haters are molding right now with the latest chapter of JJK. Because after reading this chapter, I don't think anyone ever expected this little individual right here to be as useful as he is in the ending fight of the story against Sukuna. Because his teleportation ability has truly just been quite the MVP ability. Like, he has come in and saved a lot of people. He has even went on to really just anger Sukuna to where Sukuna tried to get rid of him a few chapters ago. So, Yui now revealing a new extra layer to his technique that he is able to soul transfer people. It's outright insanity just how important this character is and how important Mei is as well, since she's technically the one that has guided Yui throughout his entire life. I'm not going to get into that, loaded topic, but the point of the matter is that thanks to these two characters is the reason why someone like Yuji is able to really step up to the plate and fight Sukuna kind of on even grounds, with blood manipulation to shrine and potentially other things. I just really like the direction that Gege is doing with this chapter, and let's just talk about that. So before we go any further into Yui, Mei, and Yuji, we gotta talk about the beginning of the chapter, which starts off with the old-fashioned Sukuna glazing. Now, I think at this point, anyone that's been reading, Jujutsu Kaisen, we're all used to Sukuna Kaisen. We're used to the glazing of Sukuna, and this chapter pretty much starts off after that. Makes sense. I mean, last chapter was just too much against Sukuna. Sukuna was straight up getting absolutely demolished and bodied by Yuji with multiple black flashes that he had to take. So it's clear that, with a chapter break, Gege had to go back to glazing Sukuna, so to speak. But jokes aside, though, one of the big things that the opening of this chapter tried to set up is that Sukuna is not recovering. He's not recovered. He still hasn't recovered his reverse curse technique and all that. And the only reason why he was able to fight back against Yuji in this chapter, like use his domain, was because he had to use impromptu binding vows. It literally states it within the chapter. And we don't get the, clarification of what these binding vows really were, what he actually did. But the full brunt, or the main thing you could take away from it, is that he probably can't use this technique again. And if he can, he has to be in a very certain circumstance, like this situation, probably to be able to use this domain. So because of that, this is technically a win. It shows just how far Yuji has come to be able to force Sukuna to straight up take binding vows. Like, I want to make sure I lay this out here right now, okay? Because people will be quick to say, this is ridiculous, this man's a monster, he's demolishing the town and stuff right now. They'll be quick to say that, but it's like, Yuji forced this man to do binding vows. Like, that's just, he's come a long way when you think about how he was at the beginning of the story. Remember this, okay? This was a big detail of JJK, was that at the beginning, Yuji was trying to make a binding vow with Sukuna when Sukuna was inhabiting his body, and we know how that went. Sukuna technically won that exchange, and, Yuji lost in terms of a binding vow to try to get one, and Yuji was kind of forced into a very bad one. In this way, Sukuna was, kind of forced into a bad binding vow. And I like that. I like the, the contrast there, and it shows the growth of Yuji as a character, that he's actually able to step up to the plate and challenge Sukuna, even in the realm of one of his peaks, so to speak. I like that. I really do. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is the fact that we get a little bit of information about how Sukuna was able to accomplish this said feat within the chapter. And apparently how he accomplished it was thanks to using a different segment of his brain to be able to use this domain. And so he had to rewire different, circuit boards, so to speak, just to be able to use his domain of Malevolent Shrine in this type of form of it, just to be able to fight Yuji. And I like how the way the form looks here. It's a mixture of Sukuna, but also it looks like Megami is leaking out. You can see, the darkness on the right there. It looks like Megami is leaking out of it. And I think the reason why that is because the chapter literally starts off with saying, thanks to the constant black flashes that Yuji was hitting Sukuna with, the fusion between Megami and Sukuna's soul is starting to, waver. The boundaries between their souls are just bleeding out. And I think that's kind of what this domain really represents, is Sukuna's inner world, and that Megumi is rising to the surface from the bottom depths of the abyss. So that's pretty cool. I feel like that is definitely foreshadowing for things to come, with Megumi potentially coming back to help out Yuji in this fight. There is something that does need to be talked about, and that is the fact of how Sukuna really did accomplish this, and that is him using his brain, a different segment of his brain, to accomplish it. Now, as much as people might be quick to say this is quote-unquote an ass pull, I don't really think it is. And everybody that's watched my videos as of late knows I'll call out Sukuna when it needs to be called out. Like, you know, the glazing and stuff, and how it can be kind of, like, repetitive, or he shouldn't lose at this point. I will say that this fits perfectly in line with Sukuna's abilities, but on top of that, we've kind of seen already applications of this thanks to Gojo, and this chapter kind of clarifies that a little bit. So him being able to use a different part of his brain to be able to use this technique is, you know, not crazy to me. It really isn't. It makes perfect sense. I don't really see any problem with it whatsoever. So, yeah, I think there's nothing wrong there. It's just also, Sukuna is the king of curses. He's lived for a very long time. Of course, he would know really how to use the brain and what to do with certain techniques if he is actually pressured. I mean, he even had to use a different, like, hand sign, so to speak, to copy Gojo, just to be able to do what he did within this chapter. So, yeah, food for thought there. But, with all that being said, we need to move into Yuji and what happened, and the, you know, explanation to his blood manipulation, to his shrine and all that. It's very fascinating, and I like the details that were brought up, because even though it's been in our face for a very long time, this chapter just straight up lets us know how powerful Yuji really is at this point. So, Chozo basically reveals the reason how he's able to heal is thanks to turning his cursed energy into blood. But the thing is that a lot of people that use, you know, RCT, or reverse curse technique, it's a lot different. Like, you know, when they are, let's say, they lose a body part, okay? Let's say, you know, their arm is just completely, you know, cut in half, or cut off, okay? They're not reattaching the arm. More or less, they grow an entirely new arm with reverse curse technique. While Yuji, we even see in this chapter, when he is taking damage from Sukuna's domain, Yuji straight up, like, reattaches his leg. His blood connects to his leg, and it reattaches his leg. And so, he's not creating new body parts. He's literally using his blood and manipulating it to reattach and heal the wounds. And so, the overall output of curse energy is a lot lower than what it would be for, you know, reverse curse technique. So, I think that's pretty cool. It basically says that, you know, blood manipulators that have really, like, ascended and become a lot stronger are really broken. Like, in a really crazy way, they're incredibly broken because they don't have the normal limits and flaws that a regular reverse curse technique user would actually have. But also, this chapter kind of talks about how you can't really heal people that easily. And it makes me really do wonder something. You know, one of the big things that these past few chapters has definitely tried to let us know is that Yuji is like a mold. He has been molded by the different souls that's been in his body and the different techniques that have been used with his body, and he is able to, you know, grasp and gain them. For instance, we have in this chapter, he's straight up able to use simple domain. We literally see him use simple domain, and that is actually ridiculous for that to be able to happen. And I think that's really cool, because one of the big things about this is that, you know, Yuji doesn't just get techniques from, let's say, Sukuna, he can get them from other people if they inhabit his body. That's just what he is. He's like a vessel, so to speak. So in this case, it makes me wonder, thanks to Sukuna constantly using reverse curse technique, like, we've seen him, like, heal Yuji in the early stages of JJK, like the heart, etc., I'm going to assume Yuji isn't going to be able to heal others, because technically, he could probably heal himself, but he probably could also heal others, since Sukuna was technically healing someone else. And, I mean, it was his body, but you get the point. So, I wonder if Yuji might be able to heal others because of just what has been established here. But anyways, regardless if that happens or not, it does not change the fact that, you know, Yui's ability has really came in at such a crucial time period within the story that it's honestly just ridiculous just how useful he is. I never would have expected this character that obviously has appeared here and there over the story, and let's be honest, has a lot of controversy surrounding them thanks to Mei Mei being basically a groomer. I never expected this character to be just so important within the story. I'm just like, yo, Gegi, that's a very smart application of his ability, like to teleport people. teleporting souls into others is just honestly such a broken technique when you consider someone like Yuji that's able to use it to its fullest extent. It makes a lot of sense now why, like, Yuta said, like, they cheated, because it's like, if Yuji's able to take stuff like Simple Domain, imagine what else he could have had. It's ridiculous to think about, which there is limitations. Apparently, you know, only one person could swap with, like, 2 per month or whatever. There's a limit, and there might be a way around this. I do want to point that one out, because this could be a limit thanks to just, you know, Yui's binding vows or abilities that he uses, and there is a potential possibility if Yuta was to use his domain, like we saw with his swords, that he might be able to, you know, circumvent this problem and be able to allow someone to do, let's say, maybe 4 soul swaps, you know, actually, instead of just 2 per month. So for all we know, there could be more techniques that, you know, Yuji is hiding from us that we're completely unaware of. But let's get back into the topic. The point of the matter is that the soul swapping ability is pretty interesting, because it's different from Mahito, but it's also in a very similar way. Even Yuji talks about this, and he gets concerned about it, because obviously Mahito's technique, when he was to, you know, transform someone's soul, their very body erupted and melted, or transfigured, so to speak. We saw it multiple times, and thanks to that is why a lot of people suffered and died. And Yuji's like, wait, if you were to transfer someone's soul into someone else's body, wouldn't the body get destroyed? And, you know, Yui's like, no, actually, because, you know, I transfer the soul without really opening the box, then the box is never opened, so the body doesn't go into shock. It doesn't know that the soul has been changed. And I think that's really interesting, honestly. That's a really cool way, because the very presence of a soul is obviously aware of. People are aware of it within the JJK verse. I mean, Mahito is a good example of this. So because of that, Yui being able to do this type of feat makes perfect sense. I think it's just really cool to transfer a soul to another body. So, yeah, just shout-outs to these 2 characters really coming in clutch and really saving the day with their abilities. It's not something I ever expected. But, let's get into Yuji for a second. So, Yuji having Simple Domain, you say whatever you want. People used to call him the punch and kicks merchant. You can't say that no more. This man is like a special grade sorcerer now. Like, he's grade 1 above. Like, he is strong. Because for him to be able to now use a Simple Domain, have blood manipulation, he's able to use shrine, potentially other techniques, Yuji's ridiculous. Like, he's straight up broken. So, all I'm going to say is at this point in time, what a chapter of JJK. It's honestly such an incredible chapter I cannot get enough of. And I gotta say, I like this fight. Like, it's definitely finally getting more interesting. It doesn't just seem one-sided, like Sukuna's just demolishing everyone. I'm glad to see more of a struggle that is clearly taking place within these chapters. But I will leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my video and you want more, please subscribe. You know, do leave a like. And with that, Chibi out.